All right, everyone, we're going to do a little reading, but I have a picture so you can kind of picture what Elvis looked like during this time period. So there is Elvis. This was taken in early 1954. And this is the house that, well, he didn't live in this. These two houses are identical. So this one looks like that. But this is the one that Elvis lived in. He lived in the bottom. And a rabbi and his wife lived up there. And the rabbi's wife and Elvis's mother got along very, very well. They would meet and have coffee a lot at each other's table, kitchen table. And this was the car that they drive. It was a 1941 Lincoln. And he's always dressed so spiffy. And the people up here loved him and his dad, and they would say how they were always polishing this old car. And Elvis, they were, I guess, Jewish or something, and so they couldn't, like, turn the heat on or turn electricity on. There were some things they couldn't do on the Sabbath, and they would call down, and Elvis would run upstairs and do it for them. So they just loved him and his family. So anyway, give you an idea what he looks like in the late 53 when Lucy met him. Okay, so we're going to read a little bit. So just a follow-up. This was a pretty, as Kelly said, steamy chapter. Elvis married Lucy. He loved her, and in their hearts, they married each other before God, and said the I do's, and Elvis said their love is now written in heaven. And they had not known each other very long, but their love was strong. But there were a couple things. Last time I was trying to find some things in this chapter. So let me explain. So there is a controversy if this is a true book or not. And so while I was listening to the other guy read this, he was doing a lot of research. He also interviewed the author, Derry Matera, and also spoke with Desiree, Lucy's daughter, Lucy and Elvis's supposed daughter. But the author did a lot of research and spoke to many people. And Lucy wanted the truth written. So you have to believe, is Lucy telling the truth or not? Is she really an honest person? Or has she made the story up? But the fact that she did not want anything from this book, she never approached Elvis Presley Enterprises. They've never tried to prove that Desiree's Elvis's daughter. They don't want any money from this. She just wanted to tell the story for her daughter. Did she make up the story to tell her daughter? Based on the story, you can kind of decide for yourself. But the author did a lot of research. And even though Elvis never spoke about going down to Louisiana to try to get on the Louisiana Hayride or get on the Watchy whatever show, or try to make it down in Shreveport, there's a lot of proof of people that the author spoke with that saw him down there, especially in 53 and some in 52 before he graduated. And I also read a book with Elvis' mother, Gladys, where she talks about him being late for something or having to rush back from Louisiana the night before something was to happen at high school the next day. So it sounds like he probably did do that. And, this was before he had made his big record, and started getting popular. So I was trying to find, so also you can kind of go back for someone who didn't know Elvis, how would they be able to describe his personality? So I look for things in this book that, based on what I've heard from family members and people that knew him, and even things that he said in interviews, I feel like I know him. Even though I don't really know him, I feel like I could probably say, yeah, that's probably something he would have said, because I've either heard him say that before, or heard something like that before, or heard examples of how he lived his life. And so there were a couple things in here that sounded so much like Elvis that I wanted to point them out. And I was looking for things that he said where I should have been looking for things that he did. So one of them was, "I have a surprise for you," and he flashed a mischievous grin. So two things there. One, Elvis loved to surprise people. Once he got famous and owned, all the stories about him, surprising people with a new car, or surprising them with buying their house, or surprising them with paying for hospital bills, or surprising someone with jewelry, or being in a store and someone looking at something and he's like, goes up to them, "Do you like it?" And they're like, "Yeah," and he buys it for them. He loved to see the look on people's faces, the surprised look. That is something he loved to do. And also the mischievous grin. Many times I've read a couple of other girlfriends' books, and that I think are, for the most part, pretty accurate. And many times they would mention him. He had that mischievous grin. He was up to something. Elvis was a fun person. He liked to have a good time. He wanted all the people around him to have a good time. And he was basically a little boy inside of a big man. It's like he didn't grow up. There was a part of him that was very fun-loving and childish, wanting to play and just enjoy life. And so he liked to pull pranks on people. He would have things up his sleeve that he'd want to do, so to surprise someone. So that is also something that sounds very much like him, and things that he had, that mischievous grin. People would say he would smile that mischievous grin, and you knew he was up to something. So that was another thing. And also, talking about not being able to wait, he could not wait, especially when he got famous, or when he got older. I don't know about when he was a kid, but once, there are people that are alive that could tell stories of him. Most of them have to do with his being famous time period. And they said that when Elvis wanted something, he wanted it now. He did not want to wait. And he was just one of those, when he decided to do something, it was spur of the moment. He hopped in the car and he went to do it. Or he called something up on the phone, or he had Joe Esposito call up and do something. I mean, it was just, you want to do it now? Don't want to wait. So that also sounds like him. Okay, so anyway, this was just a really, really special chapter, and like she said, their love would carry on over the tremendous obstacles of the next 24 years. So they got married. They literally got married. Now, Elvis had girlfriends, and of course he married Priscilla, and he had lots of girlfriends, some serious, some just acquaintances, throughout his life. But as we'll see later, he compared everyone to Lucy. Everyone was compared to Lucy. So we'll read about that later. So this wedding that he did in his heart in front of God is huge, very huge. I mean, it seems like just a little simple thing. And it was very sweet, very loving, very tender, but it was serious. All right, so here we go. Next chapter. Well, I don't know if it's the next chapter. It just says it's still the same night. It's still November of 1953. So back at the hotel, we talked late into the night. Elvis continued to outline his plan for success. He was obsessive about it. That is another thing. When he was very determined. So that is something that she knows, and she's very accurate. So if she's like pulling this out of the sky to write a story, she's got a lot of his personality traits down pat. And this was before a lot of these other books were ever written. So before, I think all of them. I think Priscilla's came out a little bit later after hers. And then all of the other girlfriends that wrote books wrote them like later on in their life. You know, they never wanted to exploit Elvis and their relationship. And so some of them weren't written until the 90s. And some even maybe in the 2000s. Like, I don't know about Ginger and Linda. But anyway, so this girl seems to know him. But he was obsessive about it. I won't let anybody stop me. If they knock me down, I'll get right back up. That's the only way to do it, he said. I know what it's like to have nothing. I want to prove to you what I can do. You don't have to prove anything to me, I said. I know how wonderful you are, not only because I love you, but because you have a special gift. Just remember, don't ever leave God out of your life. He will always guide you. Please promise me you'll do that. I will if you promise not to let anything separate us. I froze with fear. That was a promise I could never make. Elvis gently stroked my face and cupped his hands over my ears as he had before. It felt as if he was sending his love through his palms. From now on, I'll put my hand over my ear when I'm performing to remind me that you love me, he said. He went to the phone and called home, telling his mother he was all right and would be staying over with the friend. That's exactly something he would have done. He spoke to her gently and lovingly. She seemed so concerned about him, but he was able to convince her that he was okay. After speaking to her, he went to the window and opened the curtains to let in the moonlight. We can't shut out our old friend, he said. He turned, then came to me again. He slowly loosened my gown and let it drop to the floor. Whew, okay. Your breasts are like ripe peaches covered with dew in the morning, he said, soft and beautiful. After that, he always wanted me to wear peach-colored clothes. He asked how I felt about him. I was too shy to say that everything about him was perfect. His lean, young body was so different from the repulsive horror of the man. I woke up early the next morning. He was next to me, lying face down, one leg sprawled out across the bed. I lay there for a few minutes, feeling the warmth of his body, recalling our night together. I didn't want to wake him because he'd try to keep me from going. I slipped out of bed, went into the bathroom, and quietly gathered up my things. I slid off my batiste gown, put on my white slacks, and fished a fresh red knit blouse out of my travel bag. I tiptoed into the bedroom, glancing over him to make sure he was still asleep. He was. He had drifted into the center of the bed, and his leg was all twisted up in the yellow bedspread. He was clutching his pillow so tightly, it made me think he slept with a teddy bear when he was younger. I sat down at a small wooden table that wobbled, looked in the drawer, and found a few sheets of hotel stationery. I also found a pen with the name of a Memphis restaurant stamped on it in gold letters. I read the inscription on the pen and began visualizing what the restaurant might look like, doing everything but writing the note. What could I write? I couldn't give him my phone number or address. I couldn't even say I'd call him because I wasn't sure where to reach him. I stared down at the stationery and realized that the best 24 hours of my life were coming to an end, and that they might never be repeated. I heard him stir and was afraid he was going to wake up. He shifted again, and his light brown hair fell down over his forehead. He looked better that way than with his hair slicked back, which was how he wore it. I noticed again how dark his eyebrows were, and the strange way his upper lip dipped down in the center like a heart. I wanted to kiss him, but couldn't risk waking him. Maybe I could just creep over and touch his face one last time. I tried to write, but the pen wouldn't work. I turned the paper over and scribbled some lines in the bottom until the blue ink finally flowed. I thought about the restaurant again. Was the food as bad as its pen? Silly thought, but I was trying hard to keep from writing what could be my last goodbye. I never wrote the note. Elvis, the sneak, had been awake all along, watching me tiptoeing around. He leaped out of bed, totally naked, scaring me to death, then roared out a laugh. He took me in his arms and kissed me, and then began to tickle me. "Where are you going?" he asked. "Why'd you get dressed?" He held me away and looked at me. "You're as pretty in the morning as you were last night." I loved his compliment, but was embarrassed by being caught trying to slip away. I fumbled for an explanation, finally blaming the plane schedules. "I'm going to drive you to the airport, honey," he said. "But first, I've got to go home. I'll be right back." He pulled on his pants and his black and white buckskin loafers and slid his arms into his blue cowboy shirt. Leaving it unbuttoned, he rushed out the door. Such a picture. You can picture that happening, right? Rushing out the door, shirt half on. He was gone less than 30 minutes. I hadn't even finished gathering my things before he blew back into the room. He was wearing a jacket and a different shirt, a red one, but it was still unbuttoned. The whole way to the airport, Elvis talked excitedly about our future. I was his official girlfriend, and that was that. I would soon be his wife. He would become a famous singer like Frank Sinatra or Dean Martin, or a gospel singer, Jake Hess. We would live like royalty. I let myself accept the wonderful picture he was painting. We got to the airport much too soon. Our parting was brief and happy. A beginning instead of an ending, at least in his eyes. "Can you come back next weekend?" "I don't think so. It's hard for me to get away." "That's okay. I'll be in Monroe again soon. There's a country music show down there I'm trying to get him to let me sing." This is the Wichita Valley Jamboree is what he's talking about. The country show he's showing up. "I'm sure they'd let you perform. You'd be good." "You should tell him that. But don't worry. I'll be around Monroe a lot, and we'll see each other." Remember that lady's husband was the guy who would hire all the singers for the show, and he wouldn't hire Elvis because his leg wiggled so much it looked like there was a bunch going on down there. He would never hire him. And he had long hair. Oh, my gosh. Poor thing. That's why he says, you should tell him that. Because he was having a hard time getting them to hire him. Climbing up the dimpled metal stairs into the steel gray airplane was like walking to the gallows. I looked back and saw Elvis standing at the gate. He was smiling and waving, and his shirt was still unbuttoned. At 18, he was a vibrant, happy boy, becoming a man. It's an image I'll never forget. I waved back, then turned and entered the plane. Inside, the cabin and seats were dull gray. The plane was as dismal as the life to which I was returning. I'd been so happy, and now this airplane, with the black-tipped propellers, was taking me away. It's killing me. I wish she could just stayed with him, but she has 2 children she has to get back to. She could just take him away. She's trying to make money to get away from him. The walkway to my house on Jackson Drive in Monroe was dotted with freshly fallen acorns. I have to look that up, Jackson Drive in Monroe, see if I can find where it was. The cement path led to 3 concrete steps with a whitewashed wood banister lining each side. I had insisted on the railing for the children's safety. Framing the windows were dark gray shutters I had painted myself. It was a beautiful house. I hated every part of it. I stood in the front hall and listened. The quiet was unsettling. Mother and the children should have been there. I put down my bag and called out for them, but there was no reply. I walked into the master bedroom, and my heart froze, as it always did when I entered that room. No matter what I did to make the room pretty and cheerful, it always chilled me because of what happened to me there. There were 6 windows. The white lace curtains were pulled tightly to let maximum amount of light inside. The dark oak floor was brightened by a woven white rug. The bed was covered with a white and powder blue chintz spread, matching dust ruffles, and a half-dozen blue and white throw pillows. I decorated the walls with my own artwork, knitted designs of brightly colored trees and flowers. There were no picture frames because of the sharp edges. I usually kept fresh flowers on the small night table to the left of the bed, along with the blue porcelain pitcher and bowl. In the corner was a dark prayer bench I'd found in a flea market. I'd worked for weeks, sanding and varnishing it until it shone like new. Over the bed was a picture of Christ encased in a bubble of glass. Dried red and blue flowers were trapped inside the bubble. I put it there thinking that the man wouldn't be so mean with Jesus looking down at him. The man suddenly walked into the out of the bathroom. That explained why the children were gone. He'd come back unexpectedly while I was in Memphis. He was in his sleeveless undershirt, and his face was red and twisted with rage. His thinning red hair hung down over his eyes in a V-shaped clump, making him look even more horrible. I braced myself for what was coming. I wouldn't break no matter how much he beat me. I'd die before confessing anything. "Where have you been?" I had to go away. I felt the familiar pain as his fist crashed into my face, only this time the blow was harder and hurt more than ever before. The force of the punch knocked me back into the plaster wall, but I stayed on my feet. Staying up was crucial. It was the only dignity I had. "I know you've been dancing with your sinful body, luring men to lust for you through this wicked dancing." He talked like the fire and brimstone preacher he listened to in Mississippi. The meaning, however, was clear. He had found out about the television show. I dreaded this moment but expected it and had my answer prepared. The purpose of the awful marriage was to help my career. I never got the chance to say it. He punched me again and then grabbed my shoulders and threw me against the wall. He paused for a moment, assessing the damage. He stormed over and slapped me back and forth again and again. Then, in an instant, it was over. He was gone. I stood in the corner, fighting to remain on my feet. It wasn't his blows that now weakened my legs. It was the humiliation. I saw blood on my blouse just above my left breast and realized why he had stopped. My blood had become a ritual sign that he had accomplished his task. I reached up to determine where I was bleeding and discovered that both my mouth and nose had given him his satisfaction. I remained rigid against the wall, searching my mind for some peg to hold on to. There was one. It had an immediate calming effect. The pain eased. The tension left my body as I walked over to the shining prayer bench and slowly knelt down. I clasped my hands together and brought them to my face. "Dear God, thank you for not letting him find out about Elvis. That's all I ask. Allow me this one secret." With renewed courage, I got up from the bench and walked to the long, narrow bathroom to deal with my injuries. I lifted both hands to open the white shuttered doors of the medicine cabinet. All the bandages and medicines were neatly in place. A trace of dried blood was on the edge of the gauze roll, a reminder of my last beating. The orange iodine stung as it touched my nose, but I was used to it. I had played the scene so many times before. The man left the next day. I went to see a lawyer about a divorce. He was a pleasant young man named Billy Adams, tall and thin, with thick, sandy blonde hair. I explained little about why I wanted a divorce, only that my husband wasn't around. I think desertion was listed as the official grounds. I was too afraid to put anything about physical and mental cruelty into writing. Mr. Adams informed me that if the man didn't contest, it would cost about $380. I didn't have anything close to that, but he said it wouldn't have to be paid until the divorce was final. He also told me to be patient. Divorces weren't easy in the 1950s, especially for a 17-year-old. After he finished explaining, Mr. Adams offered me a part-time job in his office. I thanked him and declined. And now here's the research. The lawyer actually goes and the author talks to this lawyer, Billy Adams. Billy Adams a colorful sort who pulls no punches, continues to practice law in Monroe. I remember Lucy like it was yesterday, he said. It was one of my very first divorce cases. I think she says he was a young guy. Pleasant young man named Billy Adams. Yep. She was one of my first divorce cases. I'm sitting in my office, and in walks one of the best-looking women I've ever seen in my life. What she told me about the guy never being around shocked me plumb out of my chair. You had to see her to understand what I'm saying. She had it all. Everything a man would dream about in a woman. Beauty, body, brains, poise, personality, bearing, class, the works. It defied reason that anyone would desert her. Adams arranged a separation based on Louisiana's bed and board law, meaning the couple was no longer living together. They had to continue on that basis for a year in order to pass the law's no reconciliation condition. So that's what he set up for her. So she was going to have to be apart from him for a year before they could do anything. Okay, back to Lucy. I knew that I had to do more than file some papers to save myself, and soon. The contrast was too much. Elvis was heaven, home was hell. 2 weeks later, I received another phone call at Silverstein's. It upset me when I was motioned to the phone. The Mr. Music show had been on the air a few months now, and men who'd seen me dancing sometimes recognized me in the store. The bolder ones would call. When I politely turned them down, a few became abusive. The phone was out in the open, and the sales ladies could hear both sides of the conversation if they strained, which they usually did. He has a real nice voice, the woman said as she handed me the receiver. I hesitated. You can just see her taking a deep breath, then took the phone. Is it okay to keep calling you here? It was Elvis. It wasn't okay. It was too risky, but I wanted to talk to him. It's okay for now, for a little while. Could you meet me in Shreveport next Saturday? I'm going to the Louisiana hayride. I'm trying to get on. So right here, I wrote November 14th or 21st. I'm not sure. I was reading something else. I don't think that's right. Because this is in 1953, so that's not right. But I was reading something, and some things he was doing made me think that because she had gone to see him in November of 53, that it may have been in November 14th or 21st, because those were free Saturdays. Isn't that kind of cool? All right, so he said, can you meet me in Shreveport next Saturday? He's trying to get in the Louisiana hayride. Shreveport was only 105 miles from Monroe. I had to go and tell him the truth. It wasn't fair to lead him on. Elvis told me to go directly to the motel where he was planning to stay. He said it was easy to find, just off the main highway near a military base. I couldn't miss it. I arranged to have Mother take care of my daughters and told her I had another modeling assignment. Driving the burgundy convertible, this was an emergency. I left for Shreveport in the early afternoon, dressed in black Jansen pants with a matching knit sweater. The motel was easy to find. It had a glaring red and blue neon sign out front that said Ida Motel, or something similar, probably the name of the owner's long-lost love. It was a seedy place, about 30 rooms, with flaking white paint trimmed in peeling pea green. Ida couldn't have been too impressed. Elvis was standing outside in the parking lot when I arrived. He was also dressed in black, including a cowboy shirt with a bright red neckerchief, a must for any aspiring country singer in those days. There's pictures of him back in those days when he was a young teenager, already wearing those neckerchiefs around his neck. His pants were baggy, and his shoes were white. His hair looped down across his forehead the way I liked it, and his sideburns were thicker than when I had seen him in Memphis. He was standing with another man, a stocky, dark blonde fellow who was smoking a cigarette. As I got out of the car, the blonde man let out a shrill woof whistle. It unnerved me so much I jumped back in her car. "Get out of here," Elvis shouted to the man, pushing him away. "Don't you have any respect?" I don't know who that person is. Possibly be his cousin, Gene, who would travel with him a lot back in the day. They were very, very, very close, like brothers, and did a lot of stuff together. So Gene may have ridden down with him, but I don't remember him being stocky. But I think he was. He probably had dirty blonde hair like Elvis. But Elvis put so much stuff in his, it made it look darker. I didn't get out of the car until the man was out of sight. Elvis ran over, hugged me, and apologized about the whistle. I stiffened when he embraced me, and he sensed something was wrong. He took my hand and led me to a semi-secluded spot behind the motel. "I guess I should check into a room," I said. "I already have a room for us." The edge in his voice told me he was offended that I hadn't assumed we'd stay together. That bothered me because meeting in a tacky motel made me feel cheap. A beautiful hilltop was one thing, but Ida's place wasn't exactly terra. "Just meet me there," he said, handing me a plastic key holder. "You go first. I'll come a few minutes later." I walked down the rows of doors until I found the right one. The key didn't seem to fit. I double-checked the key against the fading number on the door. It matched. I tried the key again, and it finally worked. The first thing that hit me was the smell. It was the rug. Years of humid Louisiana summers had given it an unpleasant, musty odor. The double bed was covered with the flimsy brown spread that was threadbare from washing. Elvis came in about 15 seconds later, hardly discreet. There he is. His presence changed the entire room. It was as if a warm light flashed on, softening all the hard edges. He held me, and I inhaled his nice, clean smell. I didn't know if it was his soap or the hair tonic he carried in a tall, skinny bottle with a shiny silver top, but it was enough to drown out the rug. I fought to keep my emotions in check. Oh, talking about that hair tonic? Someone did some research when I was listening to this book being read, and they found the hair tonic that he used. And I don't remember the name of it, but guess what? It was a skinny bottle and had a shiny silver top. Another proof that she actually knew what she was talking about. Okay. I fought to keep my emotions in check. I didn't want him to know what I'd gone through since the last time we were together about being beaten up. But I was determined to tell him the truth. When he pulled back to kiss me, he stopped, startled by my tears. "Hey, what's all this? Did you miss me that much?" When I didn't smile, he realized I was serious. "What? What's the matter?" His blue eyes were wide, demanding, and full of fear. He hated rejection. Rejection was something he was constantly forced to face. He'd pour out his soul performing, come bounding off the stage, and then have some bored booking agent tell him he lacked talent. He braced himself for a rejection from me. "Honey, come here," he said, hugging me. "I love you. Nothing can change that." Instead of comforting me, the words stirred my guilt. I could handle pain. My life was full of it. But to inflict pain on this sweet person would be awful. I was trapped, forced to hurt the only man I ever loved. Hold on a second. Got the wood stove going here. I need to close the damper. It's getting hot. Okay. Right back at it. Okay. She did not want to hurt him. He sensed my concern and kissed me gently. My lips, my whole body trembled. "What is it?" he whispered. "I have a story to tell you," I said, choking with tears. "Once there was a very young girl who lived in a convent. One day, her grandmother came and said the girl was to be someone's wife. A deal had been made. It was all agreed upon and settled. The girl couldn't do anything about it." He was silent for a moment, confused. Then suddenly he understood. He started to say something, but nothing came out. I wanted to tell you so many times, I said. I didn't know if you would understand, if you would hate me. Elvis turned and walked over to the bed. It creaked as he sat down. He buried his face in his hands. I never saw the man before they made me marry him, I continued. I was only 11. It was all arranged. I don't love him. I never have. He's awful. I couldn't go on. Through my tears, I caught a glimpse of his face. The lamp reflected in his watery eyes. His breathing became quick as the hurt and confusion built into anger. He shot up off the bed and slammed his fist into the wall. No, 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 he shouted, hitting it again and again. Who is this bastard? I couldn't bear to talk about my ugly life. Elvis, you're the only man I gave myself to willingly. He'll never have that. He grabbed and hugged me close in his arms. We both cried as we held on to each other. You belong to me, he said, holding me tighter. I've tried to get away. After I was married, I went to a priest. I couldn't stand it anymore. I begged him to help me, but the priest wouldn't listen. He told me I was immature. He told me to go home and be a good wife. Elvis broke away and began pacing the room. Things are starting to go well for me, he lied. I want you out of there. I'll take care of you. This hasn't changed anything. I love you. I want you with me. Nothing else matters. I was comforted by his words, but knew Elvis really was struggling. He was in no position to support a family, and I hadn't even told him about my 2 children. If he was to have any chance at success, he had to be free to go after it. I couldn't burden him with children when he needed to pour his money and energy into his career. He stopped pacing and sat on the bed beside me. He kissed me softly. It was his signal that our love had survived my shocking revelation. It was something for me to hold on to, a spark of promise. I reminded him of our marriage vows on the hilltop in Memphis and told him that I still meant every word. I smiled for the first time in hours. You have your career to go after, I said. You mustn't let anything stop you. Don't worry, it'll work out between us. We talked for the rest of the day and late into the night. I told him more about my life, starting again with my father's unexpected death and the trouble it caused my family, and how my grandmother believed that the only way out was to barter me. Elvis was understanding for the most part, but became furious whenever he thought of me with the older man. He threatened to kill the man, but he was just expressing his anger. He wanted me out of the marriage. Spent and exhausted, we fell asleep on the thin brown bedspread, still dressed in our matching black outfits. Okay, so we go to the research from the author. Shreveport was the pivotal city in Elvis's career. The Louisiana Hayride was second only to the Grand Ole Opry as the most important country and western music showcase in America. It was just 5 years old at the time and was already dubbed the Cradle of the Stars because it had launched the careers of Hank Williams, Webb Pierce, Slim Whitman, Jim Reeves, Farron Young, and dozens of others. The biggest career the Louisiana Hayride would launch was that of Elvis Aaron Presley, but that was still a year away. In the summer and fall of 1953, which is where we are in this book, Elvis was even more of a fixture in Shreveport than he was in Monroe. Richard Wilcox, the current station manager of KNOE Radio in Monroe, was the sales manager of KWKA in Shreveport at the time. KWKA was a station that produced the Hayride and broadcast it to Texas, Arkansas, and Louisiana. The Hayride hands would rehearse at the big studio we had at KWKA. Let me start over. The Hayride bands would rehearse at the big studio that we had at KWKA at the radio station. And Elvis would ride the bus from Memphis all night so he could watch them jam on Saturday mornings when they practiced. So he meets Lucy Saturday afternoon. So they talk all afternoon and into the evening, and she either goes to sleep there or spends the night there. So that's why he's with her that afternoon and evening. He had spent that morning at the radio station, KWKA, listening to the Hayride bands rehearsing. So Elvis would ride the bus from Memphis all night so he could watch them jam on Saturday mornings, Wilcox explained. I think he started coming in as early as 1952. I saw him hanging around the station dozens of times. Billie Jean Horton, the salty widow of Hank Williams and Johnny Horton, was a friend of Elvis's then, and she still lives in Shreveport. Hell, Avis was just wandering around Shreveport all the time, 1952, 53, sometime around then. I can't remember, but it was a long before they let him get on. Talking about getting on the show. Billie Jean told me. He was driving back and forth from Memphis for years, begging, borrowing, pleading. We were about the same age, so we were friends. I used to give Elvis $1 that he couldn't afford, so he could have his white pants cleaned. I gave him lots of dollars, and it was usually my last dollar. I wasn't sweet on him. I was a damn good-looking lady. I had my pick of the hayride litter. But if I had $1, I'd give it to him. That's what you did back then. You helped people. Elvis's cousin, Eugene, which he went by Gene, Elvis's cousin Gene Smith sometimes traveled with Elvis to Shreveport in the early days. I remember he had a little gal somewhere along the road in Louisiana, but not in Shreveport, because remember, she lived in Monroe. So the girl wasn't in Shreveport, Gene said. I think her name was Lucy. Yeah, I definitely remember a Lucy. Never got to see her, though. No one did. Elvis wouldn't talk much about her. So Gene, who was like a brother to Elvis, they were very close. So Gene's mother was Elvis's mother's sister. So they were very close. And they moved to Memphis also when Elvis and his family moved up. Several of his mom's family moved up also. A brother did, Travis, and his sister did. I think her name is Laverne or Lavelle or something like that. But I believe that is Gene's mother. And so Gene and Elvis were very close in age, so they did a lot together. And he traveled with him a lot in the early days, even when he first got famous, started getting famous and traveling around. But he probably traveled some down to Louisiana some with him too back in the day. But I think a lot of times he went by himself. Anyway, so apparently it wasn't Gene because he said he never met Lucy. And if he had met Lucy at the Ida Motel, he would have remembered. But I'm sure Elvis talked a lot to Gene and mentioned Lucy to her. Okay, well, that's it. That's all we're going to do today. And I hope that you've enjoyed this. And we're going to go to 53, 55 next. So we're still in 1953. So I think we're in November of 53. So, all righty. So he met her in like maybe August of 53. And so now we're in November of 53. So they've known each other for 2 months and they're married in their hearts in front of God. And she just now told him about the man and being married to him. And Elvis was pretty upset about it, as he should be. Or would be, you'd expect that. You did get to see a flash of his temper, which kind of there's flashes of his temper throughout his life. So that is also, and he went and hit the wall, was upset about that. So he does that he does that some as he gets older too, where he just gets really mad and then he's done with it. So again, that sounds like Elvis. And once again, Lucy, who has no knowledge of anything of Elvis except her experiences with him. She says that in this book. So again, sounds like she knows who she's talking about. Okay, I'm going to go. I'm rambling. I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.